My name is Stephen Davis. I'm a chemistry professor here at the University of Mississippi, and the department has never offered freshman chemistry online before, and so this past summer I was asked to try to develop an online version of our freshman chemistry class. So there are a couple of problems with doing this that we had to overcome. One is that, freshman chemistry has a lot of math in it and models that we use to describe nature. And so how do we get students to, how do we convey this information to students through an online version of a class? It's not like we could ask students to read a book and then discuss it online afterward, because students aren't very fluent in mathematics as freshmen, and most of the language that we use to describe nature is mathematics. And so there had to be a better way. So I could stand in front of a camera and lecture for 50 minutes right on the board, but eventually I came across a piece of equipment called LiveScribe pen, which is just a pen that allows me to write on special paper. And the paper records the motions of the pen, which then saves my voice as I talk and write as a PDF file. And that PDF file can be then viewed through Acrobat Reader by the student, or it can be uploaded to a website and then viewed through the web later by the student. So what I did was I recorded my lectures while writing on this paper, just like I was writing on the board, and record them in like 5-10 minute increments, so the student could easily download the videos on anything that would run a web browser. So they could use their computers, their laptops, their phones, or any device like an Apple iPad. So in this way, a student could just see small chunks of a lecture, and they could see worked out problems and examples, especially the math steps. I could describe each step as I went through in words and both in writing, so the students could get an idea of how to work problems. So chemistry is basically problem solving. It's not just memorizing facts and figures. So a student could easily see my steps as I went through and worked problems to understand the material. And from student input for this first try for online freshman chemistry, they really liked the course, because they could stop and start these PDF files at will, so they could go through. If they had a question, they could stop it, and do a little research on their own, or work through problems, or try to go from one line of math to the next on their own. Then they could restart the video and continue on with the problem. And because it was in short segments, 5 to 10 minutes long, they didn't have to sit and watch a 50-minute video at one time, taking a big chunk of time out of their day. They could do it in pieces, riding the OUT bus to and from school, or they could have a job, and on a lunch break they could view 5-10 minutes of videos, and so they could do it in smaller chunks instead of having to outlay a whole 50 minutes at one time to work in their summer schedules. I had students who would upload the course or front load the course, or backload the course depending on their summer schedules. I had one student who had an internship scuba diving in Belize, mapping out the coastline, and so he was able to front load the course and take his tests early so that he could go to Belize and fulfill his internship. That wouldn't have been possible with an in-class type of lecture. But an online class offers students this great flexibility. Another problem we had was, how can students ask questions? And since most of the questions are algebra based, how could they could email me, but it's hard for students to write algebra equations just with text email. And so we came up with two ways that seemed to work. The most primitive way was to use Skype, and a student could sit in front of his computer and me in front of mine, and he could write out his questions on a piece of paper if they were math-based and hold it up to the camera, and then I could write a solution and talk and hold my solution up to the camera. But a more convenient way, I believe, is called Scribbler, and both of these are free, Skype and Scribbler. Scribbler, instead of using a video camera with voice, you have voice and a whiteboard, and the student and I can both write on the same whiteboard, so they can use their mouse and write equations, and I can write equations back while we're both talking to each other. So it's almost a face-to-face meeting, like I'm writing on the board and the student's writing on the board, and we can discuss and work on problems in that manner. So the students really liked the class. They liked the online nature of the class. That gave them the flexibility to work their summer schedules around summer jobs and other things. I only had a couple of students that were actually in Oxford. Most of them were, between Texas and North Carolina. And so we got proctors for their tests, and they were able to do it all from home, and I think it worked out really well.